Hello and a very warm welcome to all the viewers of CryptoTv in segment 2 of taxation, wherein we'll be discussing about all the micro aspects that have concerned or bothered the industry. So Raj sir, we were talking to a couple of gaming projects who are operating outside India. So they have a lot of developers worldwide who are helping them to develop a game. So this is just an example to understand how the tax structure looks like. So there are in that gaming company, we will not mention that company. They have roughly around 5 developers from India, and they were accepting their salaries in cryptos. So how is this structure looking like? How the crypto workers' salary will be taxed in India after the tax, the changed regime? And do they have to pay 1% TDS for every salary payment? Or if you can just clarify this, because there are a lot of developers who will be watching your interview, sir.
Yeah, well, most developers I know are not taking any more in tokens and coins.
Okay.
That's the first thing. I work with a lot of them myself, so I know that for sure. They have actually refused to take it now. Earlier, it was a norm. As I told you, when things are good and everything is soaring upwards, everybody's happy to take the token. When it's going downwards, nobody's happy to take the token or the coin. Now, coming from a tax perspective, well, I think the same tax provisions will apply, but there again has to, as Indy said, this is just evolving. We are just at the beginning. We are at the ground floor of our taxation policy, basically, vis-a-vis crypto or digital assets. What happens now is there will be definitions. They will have the branching out. NFTs will, I'm sure, be treated differently. Crypto will be treated differently. Salaries in token. First of all, there has to be clarity whether anybody can accept a salary or reward or a sort of a compensation in tokens. Even that is not very clear. So, advice to any developers: take cash, take fiat right now. That's my advice. Right now, things may change, and let clarity come. They're going to be taxed in the same way. Once they actually convert their holdings, they're going to be taxed the same way. It's not going to be much different. But the most important question here is it legally allowed for us to take tokens or coins as compensation? That is the fundamental question. That needs to be absolutely clear, and that's not clear right now.
So, Andy sir, your very quick take on this, sir.
Sure. This is a really interesting question, and the complications, as you've seen, this is a great use case. But if I'm the taxman sitting there and saying, how do I tax people being paid in cryptocurrency, for example, the taxman is going to say, this is income, this is salary, this is income. And therefore, if you're receiving, 0.5 Bitcoin as payment of salary, well, 0.5 Bitcoin in terms of at the point of receipt is a value, because there's a market value for that Bitcoin. That's your income. And therefore, to the extent to which you need to pay your taxes, it's normal income tax rules that would apply. And to that extent, if it hasn't been deducted by the payer of the salary, like we have in normal company terms when you're paying salaries to employees, there's deduction, then the recipient is obligated to file their taxes on the marginal tax rate on the basis of which they're receiving their salary. So it's seen as regular income tax. The mode of, the type of payment is less important as opposed to the value of receipt of
Fantastic.
that income.
So, Indy sir, very quickly, if you can just also highlight before we move to our micro sections, wherein we'll cover all the NFT tax implications as well. So, very quickly, if you can just highlight or mention few countries that are actually low on taxes, and that is the reason why people are moving away from India to those segments.
Well, I mean, one of the things that you have is there are jurisdictions around the world like Singapore, Dubai, that have been seen as fairly favorable to taxation currently. But then again, Singapore has no capital gains tax even for trading in capital markets,
Fantastic.
In equity markets.
Yeah.
So, you really have to think of it in terms that taxation policies around the world and crypto continue to evolve. And there's likely to be convergence between financial assets and crypto assets with some checks and balances.
All right, so we move to our next segment, that is micros as far as taxation is concerned. So we will discuss in detail, in all those sectors who are having or concerns as far as ambiguity, or for that matter, if there is any clarity is required. So we'll begin with NFT section with Raj sir. transactions in NFT sale and purchase, what kind of clarity you would like to provide? And will it attract kind of TDS? And if you can just simplify this tax structure in NFTs for our viewers who are actually engaged in buying and selling in India.
Well, NFTs basically one of the most complicated issues of an NFT is where is it originated? Basically, that's there. Then cross-border transactions are also there. That's another thing which needs to be addressed. Compliances, does it have any compliances? It doesn't have any right now. These 2-3 things are immediate which come to mind, top of the mind recall, which come among. There are many others, of course, countrywide, etc. Different rules, regulations from a country perspective. So it boils down to the question, we don't have the clarity, we don't have a framework. We've been actually asking for a framework for a long time and put forward several suggestions as well. Let's see where that takes us. NFTs, as we speak, and I think Indy will give a better, from a taxation perspective, he'll be able to answer that. For me, I think there will be the same taxation, the rules would apply as of now as they are to crypto, which is not exactly true, because how do you determine the value of an NFT? Basically, it's a perceived value, it's a notional value. So I think, Indy, you would say something from a tax perspective.
Sure.
From an industry perspective.
The one thing which Raj, which we probably need to further elaborate, is that when you're looking at international NFTs or cryptocurrencies traded in foreign currency, from an India perspective, if you're an India tax resident, not only do you have to worry about the 30% on a crypto to crypto mark-to-market value, you also have to take into account exchange rate fluctuations.
Fantastic.
INR versus the dollar or whatever.
Valid point, sir.
So the whole exchange angle. And I think from normal NFT taxation standpoint, whether there's going to be a distinction between NFTs and crypto, as Raj clearly pointed out, is a matter of public policy that needs clarity. But I think the real double whammy here that's the investors have been spooked is you're only being taxed on your gains and you're not being allowed any offset in your losses.
Offsetting.
That, in a highly volatile trading environment, causes a massive disincentive to trade. So I think this is something that government policy will reflect on as it evolves as taxation policy.
So, Indy sir, just a question as far as our traders and viewers all those viewers who are watching this interaction is, there are quite frequent NFT trades that are happening. So, will both buyers and sellers have to pay TDS of 1%, or is it that only buyer pays it? If you can just clarify this for our viewers.
The TDS is payable on one side. The person who is essentially making the payment, again, there's some clarity here to be had. And therefore, the TDS is deducted, at the point of payment to the recipient. And therefore, whoever is deducting the TDS files the TDS against, the person that is in receipt of it. So TDS at the end of the day is not double taxation, it's an offset. And I think the primary purpose of TDS is to create a kind of transaction ID where every transaction is now being, with a TDS component can be recognized within the government system. So it's traceability more than anything else, I would think.
All right. Raj sir, you want to quickly add to it?
No, I agree with the double whammy aspect of it. That's one part. TDS, again, TDS also, by the way, the government uses it as another option, for a lot of illegal trade as well. So we got to have even that addressed along with all the taxation. I'm talking from a overall compliance perspective, not only from a tax perspective. But I think TDS will have to be separated from crypto, as it's a completely different asset class. So I always think I don't see it's the same as crypto, although of course the fundamental and underlying technology is the same. But we need to have more clarity on NFTs, for example, because it also has your gas fees, etc. Are you going to deduct the gas fees and then have a profit on it? What is going to be the cost? There is a lot of ambiguity again. Ambiguity. As long as there's ambiguity, there are going to be questions. Another question, for example, could be, how about if a charitable organization puts across an NFT and somebody buys it? Is the charitable organization also, the tax, does it apply to them as well? That's a question again, which is going to come up, because a lot of things are happening. A lot of charitable organizations coming up and buying NFTs. Why are they buying it? Fantastic. Is there a way out? Is it a loophole?
That's a super valid point, sir. Let me ask a follow-up question to Indy sir on this. It's a case study, just for example. So, if NFTs are quite volatile like crypto, as we all are aware, a user say for example, there is a user who might sell it today, for example, 40% profit and pay taxes on it. But in NFT, they might make 80%. There are some NFTs they might make a 60% losses. So how will users cope with this heavy taxation that doesn't offset losses, since you have already mentioned that? So is there a way NFT traders can manage their losses?
At the moment, Manoj, this is an element of real uncertainty in terms of whether you will be allowed NFT to NFT offsets. But the policy of the government right now is very clear. We're only interested in gains. So the 30% rule applies to all gains. There's nothing that has been said that you can offset losses or create accumulated losses for future tax purposes, as we have in the financial asset world, where you're allowed to carry accumulated short-term losses. So I think to that extent, this is a part of public policy that needs clarification. I think there's enough conversation going around in the government circles and in public policy in that sense. So expect more clarity. I think like I said right at the beginning, these are baby steps towards granting crypto as an industry legitimacy. And therefore, there's going to be some pain along the way or some uncertainty along the way as we traverse this journey.
Fantastic. So baby steps and uncertainty, those are the two key words, Raj sir, which I've picked from this statement. So as we enter in our last leg of this interaction, so there are a couple of questions which I want you to answer is, what will be the taxation on crypto gifts? So if you can just highlight that. Say for example, if someone wants to gift someone in cryptos, so will they be taxed, and who will be taxed? If you can just highlight that.
From what I see,
taxation. Sorry, yes, Raj.
No, actually, it's your question, indeed. You should go ahead and answer it.
Right. So you have your gift rules that are in place. So up to 50,000 rupees, you're not taxed for receipt of gifts. And therefore, anything above that, you are liable for, calculating your taxes as per the crypto tax rules. And again, with all of these things, there's need for more clarity. And I think to that extent, the flat 30% rule was an initial step, which, as we've all said, has, a lot of these use cases need more explanation. And if there's any exceptions to be made, then public policy or government policy on taxation will arrive at something on this.
Give them some knowledge rather than give them that.
All right. So Indy sir, my next question to you is, how are crypto airdrops taxed in India? So there are a lot of airdrops that are happening, and there was some indication by Indian government about the airdrop thing. If you can just clarify this for our viewers as well, that's it.
Again, details would emerge on this front, but generally, when you're receiving an airdrop, your crypto taxation is calculated on the basis of a kind of cost basis, and then your exit price, and therefore the difference is what you would pay your taxes on. If you've received an airdrop where your cost of acquisition is zero, then the cost basis calculation on one side of the equation is zero. So if you end up selling it for 10,000 or what have you at some point, then your 30% obligation is on the entire 10,000. Now, perhaps there is, government has its thought process around this. You might receive an airdrop and you've transferred money separately to them, which is where they're trying to control this by saying, hey, you know what, on a cost basis, some of these transactions will be deemed value zero, and therefore you're liable for taxation on across, all of its value at the point of when you're either converting to another crypto or converting to fiat.
So if you can just clarify this for our viewers, sir. Say for example, someone in India is having say maybe 500 Luna before the episode that happened. Mm-hmm. And for that matter, that algorithmic stablecoin, which I don't want to mention that as well, that is the reason why the market is down. So, and they had come out with a 2.0 version where the airdrops were actually activated. So how will that tax structure look like? If you can just clarify that, sir.
Again, it's the version 2.2 is seen as a separate crypto asset altogether, and therefore any airdrops, this is where all the complications come in. It would be treated as a separate crypto asset. Therefore, there are two transactions taking place here. One from the Luna 1 to Luna 2 is one transaction. So if there's any gains to be had there, you would essentially be liable for taxes. And then what you do with Luna 2 down the line, in terms of exit or conversion, if there's any kind of upside value, in a mark-to-market sense, then you're liable for taxes again. But as if you've taken a loss, profit on one and loss on the other, and the loss can't be offset, that's the bit that I think the investors would love to see some clarity and perhaps some understanding where some level of loss adjustments are offered to the industry, like you have in normal financial assets.
So what's your very quick take on that, sir? Losses तो हैं ही वहाँ पर, और यहाँ पर जो नया एयर ड्रॉप मिल रहा है उसके ऊपर भी उनको टैक्सेस भरने को आ रहा है, तो ये कुछ काइंड ऑफ discouraging situation is there which is actually going on in India, sir?
Discouraging to khair, I mean, I think to that extent, crypto investors को ये भी समझना है कि till such time policy clarity emerges where a lot of these kind of use cases, which are not the normal use cases, are factored into the taxation policy where you know specifically how you would address them. There's uncertainty. These are very legitimate questions, but under the current regime, without any offset, there's clearly some level of disincentive. But clarity will emerge. I have full confidence that I always tell people that
Fantastic.
Taxation is here to stay, and the level of taxation we can debate and argue, but it's also steps to legitimize the crypto industry over time.
All right, one last question to you both is, Raj sir, we have seen total value locked in the DeFi space coming down from 74 billion. It has come down by 60%. So what is the entire episode? It has been under trouble and under broader concern as well. So what is your take, and what are the tax structure as far as the DeFi transactions are concerned? If you can just mention that as well, sir.
Basically, when you make structures in a hurry, they're always going to fall or have impact, that's for sure. It's like for anything, you make a bridge in a hurry, you'll have the same problem. All these structures came up with a lot of patchy work if you look at it very carefully. I'll keep it simple without going into the technical aspect of it. But if you look at it, most of the structures were not prepared or tailored for in environments such as what we experience right now. Taking a step back a little bit, let's see, we are in the same stage as what GST was when it started off, basically. It started off with something, and look at the entire contours of it now are completely different 2 years, 3 years down the line. There has been a paradigm shift. There have been a lot of iterations, a lot of additions, a lot of discussions around, a lot of debates around it. And now it's going towards some levels of maturity. Whether it's DeFi, whether it is the taxations, everything is in the same space right now.
Fantastic.
A, lack of awareness. B, lack of frameworks. 3, lack of clarity. All this is putting just unnecessary questions for a lot of us. Whereas actually we can make this much more simplified. I'm not saying simple, but simplified for the common man. And that's missing. We're completely missing that. These structures they're not very stable right now. They need a change and they need an overhaul.
Structures are not stable as of now and they need a change. That's a word coming in from Mr. Raj Kapoor. Indy sir, your closing remarks on this, sir.
My closing remarks would be that investors should not be too discouraged. I think that the industry, they need to understand that the industry is in a very early stage of development. Government policy will emerge. If the government had to ban crypto, I think the ban would have come through by now. But I do believe that regulation will come through when it comes to managing systemic risk, providing for investor protection, and also, you know, the sensitive area around national security, which is around terror financing and money laundering, and therefore any anti-money laundering provisions that might come in. These are the broader issues that the government is going to, grapple with as part of its overall policy. And within all of this, taxation, I think if the industry gets stability and there's certainty in many aspects and there's investor confidence is raised, taxation will evolve in a way that investors will live with taxation. Haven't we lived with taxation in the capital markets?
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being part of this interaction. Andy sir, thank you so much. Raj sir, thank you so much. You both of gentlemen have actually clarified, और यहाँ पर लेकर एक बहुत ही अच्छा एक tax structure को लेकर आपने बहुत अच्छी तरीके से explain किया. Andy sir, thank you so much for clarifying the entire tax structure as far as India, international, and what is the way forward. And Raj sir, you gave a very fantastic overview about how the companies are leaving India and moving to other destinations because of a broader uncertainty. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being part of this interaction.
Thank you so much.
Manoj. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
All right, that's all there is in today's Digitally Unplugged, the special episode on taxation. We hope you like our presentation and stay tuned on Crypto TV for more such interesting episodes. Thank you.